Welcome back to Chats on Cancer.
I'm Mary Robinson.
I'm Jamie Moore.
And we have a special guest for you today. I'm super excited about Wade Curry, who's from Omaha, the Omaha area. And we're so excited that you're here today. He's a 2-time cancer survivor.
Wade, welcome.
Well, thank you so much.
What kind of cancer did you have?
I was diagnosed in 2004 with non-hodgkins large B-cell lymphoma. And that is an aggressive blood cancer that was attributed to my service in Vietnam with Agent Orange. And there were a lot of veterans who have died from that cancer. And luckily, in 2004, I went through radiation chemotherapy at Bergen Mercy. I had my own consulting firm and I had my own insurance. And I was in remission for 8 years. I relapsed in 2013 with the same identical cancer. I had surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and then when my oncologist found out that I have an identical twin brother, he said,
wow.
you know, you have to go through the stem cell. And normally in a relapse like that, of course, they treat it more aggressively, so I was blessed to have that. You know, God knew 60-something years ago that I would need a donor.
Well,
And if you read the Bible, Proverbs 17:17 says, a friend is forever and a brother is born for adversity. And so when I needed him, he shut down his business in Texas, flew to Omaha, went through 10 days of growth hormone shots. They extracted the immature stem cells, and then I received 8 bags of that during the transplant.
oh,
And
wow.
this last month was 5 years since my transplant.
Good for you.
Congratulations.
Yep, I feel very blessed.
Out of all the things that you went through, you had chemo, you had radiation. Did you have any other what kind of testing did they do to find your cancer?
Well, it's interesting. One of my first discussion points that I wanted to talk about is the initial diagnosis. How is it that people find out that they do have cancer? And what you find in talking with people, it can be 100 different ways.
Right.
I just coincidentally was in the middle of a root canal in one of my back teeth. And I had the palate of my mouth was swelling.
Yeah.
And my dentist thought that I had some third world infection. I went on strong antibiotics for 30 days, didn't touch it, and he became frustrated. He referred me to an oral surgeon. They did the biopsy, and of course it came back as cancer.
Okay.
And luckily, because of the distance to the brain, there was a lot of concern there, but it was isolated in the sinus. And of course, when I was in Vietnam and we were breathing this Agent Orange defoliant, highly carcinogenic defoliant, it's a derivative of DDT, and of course they made farmers stop using that years ago because it was cancer causing. But naturally you'd think it potentially would be in your sinus.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Wasn't one of the generals, didn't his son pass away from cancer?
I'm not certain. I do know that veterans who were in Vietnam are diagnosed at a rate 16 times greater than the general population for that cancer. And so the VA, to its credit, said this is not, you know, this is highly correlated. And they began to treat that particular cancer as a service-connected disability. And it was through the VA that I received all of my medical treatment. And that's why I'm alive today. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
we're
I
so glad you're
have
here.
good things to say about the VA.
You know, in this day and age, it seems like everybody's hopping on the bandwagon of the VA's not doing enough or the government's not doing enough. It sounds like you had a wonderful experience.
Well, there's more to it than that. I went through a transplant in my left hand from a blood clot that was used to administer the chemotherapy. And so I have some restricted use in my left hand, but very minor compared to some of the suffering that many of our veterans have gone through. So, you know, I have nothing but gratitude and thankfulness that 5 years out, I'm alive and feel good and able to live somewhat of a normal life.
Yeah, my dad's a veteran as well, and he gets all of his medical work done at the VA, and he has nothing but good things to say about them.
Yep.
So that's good.
Well, I wanted to say as part of this little introduction that I do appreciate the opportunity to work with both of you. I commend you for your work and what you're trying to do. There's very few people these days that have not been affected by cancer in some way, either as a patient, a caregiver, a spouse, a family member, school friend, church member. You know, all of us have connections through with people. And so if there is something that can, a service that can be provided, resources that can be directed to, and just the feeling with these people to understand that they're not alone. You know, we have a wonderful stem cell survivor luncheon every Thursday at UNMC, and it is a support group, and plus you get free food.
Yes, it's great.
Really? What day is
good
this?
Sandwiches, yeah.
Well, it's for stem cell transplant patients, Jamie.
Yeah, it's only for stem cell.
Sorry.
Can I fake it?
That's
Yeah.
how Wade and I got to know each other,
Right.
because I was scared to
Well-
have the transplant, and I wanted to meet people that have made it through, because having a donor give you stem cells, you just don't know what to expect. And I was hoping to learn from people like Wade.
Yeah. Well,
But in your situation, though, I mean, Wade, God, how lucky is it to have a twin brother?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's,
right.
you know, especially
Well,
for
you
stem
know,
cells.
I know Mary's aware of this, but there are people who actually pass away waiting for a donor that
Yes.
is appropriate. And that's such a sad situation. There are a number of organizations, both nationally and internationally, that promote organ donors and have people tested so they know that potentially if there's a cancer patient, that they can do a quick match and get the stem cells in, and you know that actually saves lives. And so,
Yeah.
And not only that, though, also blood, platelets, you know, plasma, anybody that donates any of that, it saves lives. It saved my life. So,
well, I know that without the VA and without UNMC, I would not be alive today. In fact, one of the stories that I tell is that one of my worst nights in the hospital, I had severe graft versus host, which is the medical term for stem cell rejection.
Okay.
So after the stem cell transplant, if there is some rejection, then it can shut down parts of your body, and it did mine.
So even though you have a
Identical twin brother.
identical match, that twin brother,
Right.
you can still not,
You
you still have a reaction to it?
Yes, and what is known as a allogeneic transplant, it's where you receive stem cells from another person. If it's an autogeneic transplant, then you're using your own cells, and you don't have the risk of that graft versus host. But that was as hard for me as anything else. But that evening, when I was really struggling, Dr. Bocek, who was my oncologist at UNMC and a great guy, came in around 5 o'clock and sat on the end of the bed and just shot the breeze.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, he's not doing any vitals. He's not telling me where I am in terms of a prognosis. We're talking about football and the weather and whatever. And the next morning, I asked the nurse, I said, is Dr. Bocek making evening rounds now? Because normally the doctors do it in the morning. And she goes, no, not really. She said, you were the only person he saw yesterday. And I said, really? And she said, Wade, he didn't think you were going to make it through the night.
Aw.
And so he showed up and sat on the end of my bed. Just, I guess it was his way of saying goodbye. But, you know,
Well,
Mary had asked me to make 2 or 3 points
Yeah.
here, and I don't want to rush through anything.
No,
but
I kind of want to go back to how much help that physician was for you, just sitting there and talking to you. You know.
you know, I never like I said, I was a machine gunner in Vietnam,
Okay.
in the Marine Corps. So I've been around death, and I understand it, and I know that life is fleeting. Somebody said, that only God knows your expiration date. You don't know when you're going.
Right.
And I point out to our people in our stem cell survivor class that, you can be treated for cancer and be okay, and then walk out the front door and get hit by a beer truck, so
Right.
people die from different things. But normally some of the reactions of people, and I've thought about this, one of the big parts of all this cancer is accepting the fact that you do have cancer. And it's that moment in time when the doctor says, I've got some news and it's not real good. Mm-hmm. And they tell you that you have cancer. And typically people are, initially there's maybe denial, where they go, no, they've messed the test up, something's wrong. And then there's anger, mm-hmm. Why me? Why is this happening to me? What have I done? And then finally you come to the realization that your best hope is to go through treatment and to be as cooperative and as good a patient as you can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've said before, if you could run around the block 3 times and cure cancer, we'd all do it. But it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. And
I wish it was that easy, though.
Yeah.
well, one of the other things in terms of acceptance of your diagnosis is
Right.
that you learn very quickly that you really don't control anything. You see, we have people, and I was like that as a young, kind of had to be the smartest one in the room kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and all that. But you learn that these things are out of your hands.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to give up this notion of self-dependence and understand that there are forces at work greater than you that control your destiny.
Yeah.
And your faith and your attitude are key components to how you get through this. I was always kind of a type A, had to have everything just right, kind of like Mary. And
I'll admit I am that way.
yeah,
Ask Jimmy.
but
Yeah.
once the analogy I've used in some of our meetings, it's like the guy standing on the side of the stream with the kayak, and the river is rushing by, and he's trying to make a decision about, do I get in or not? Do I get in or not? And
Right.
finally, he shoves off into the water. Well, when he does that, down the river he goes, and that's kind of the way cancer treatment is. A lot of people struggle with, should I have a stem cell transplant, even if I have a donor? Is it the right thing to do? I've seen people go through that, so.
But what other choice do you have, is the way I saw it.
Right.
When you're at that point, what other choice is there?
Well, not many. That's the thing about it.
You do have a choice. You have a choice of whether or not
to do it.
Do it.
And that's
Yeah.
really your only
we
choice.
all have a choice, but you guys both made the choice to hop in that kayak and take it down the river.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the ride was this really nice little resort with a drink with a little
Coconut
umbrella
drink,
in it.
Umbrella. No.
So one of my,
Just
I had the consulting practice I had dealt primarily with merger acquisition environments
Okay.
and human resources concerns, involuntary separations, people who have worked for organizations for 20 years and never have done anything wrong.
Yeah.
And now at the end of the day, they find that they don't have a job.
Yeah.
And those are tough times to be in. But I enjoyed everything I did, but I had clients all over the world, and I was always gone. I have 3 sons, and now they are 19, 21, and 25.
Yeah.
And my prayer for years had been that God would provide a way for me to get off this consulting treadmill.
Yeah.
Because, they all say, oh, you got to be here, we wouldn't get through it without you, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And so you begin to believe all this stuff,
Yeah.
But his answer to that prayer was to allow me to relapse with cancer.
Yeah.
Because when that happened, I had to give up the practice. I couldn't get on airplanes every week. I was old enough to retire and obtain Social Security benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything just kind of fell into place. I mean, the plan was already there. I just had to kind of walk through it.
Yeah.
And now, all 3 of my sons are here in Omaha, and they're the love of my life. I
Yeah.
get to see them all, a couple of times a week. And I've said before in our meetings, you know, I've never had less financially or materially in this world, but I've never been happier either. So if you don't have anything, you don't have anything to worry about, you know. So but accepting the fact that you have cancer it's a big hurdle for a lot of people.
Yeah.
There are a lot of books written about it and all this, but it's a tough thing to just kind of let go of the ropes and just let your doctors and nurses guide you through the treatments. UNMC and Omaha, of course, is the epicenter of all lymphoma research and treatment. And, you know, I'm here, not just, I didn't pick Omaha because I said they have great medical facilities, but as it turned out, I was a recipient of that, so.
Yeah. We're very lucky to have this in the Midwest.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
You know,
I have a younger sister in Tennessee, and she's the wife of an Episcopal priest. And when one of their congregation found out that I would be in treatment at UNMC, he's an oncologist, he said, goodness, how did he pull that off, you know? How did he do that, you know? She goes, well, he lives in Omaha, and, you know, that's where it's at. The other, one of the other points that I just wanted to make quickly is that, you know, discharge is another hurdle that you have to get through.
Discharged from the hospital?
Yes,
or?
yes.
Yeah.
Because you're surrounded, I spent a lot of time in the hospital on the second cancer, but you're surrounded by doctors and nurses and caregivers and everybody in the world within just a button push that are there to take care of you. And then you face this moment of, okay, you can go home.
You're done,
you know?
yeah.
You got your husband and your dog, you know, so good luck. But
Yeah?
it's not, there's a lot of anxiety that goes with that. And one of the other tendencies of people is that, well, I just want to get back to the way things used to be.
Yeah.
And the problem with that thought is that that's not possible. You
They
know,
have to find their new normal.
we tend to think of the light as red, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But my life is much better now. I wouldn't go back to the life that I had before cancer for anything. I enjoy my life. God's given me, you know, 69 years, and I'm excited about that just to keep on going. So, but it is hard to get through that of, we see our limitations, but we don't see our possibilities. See, I wouldn't be sitting here tonight if it wasn't for cancer and maybe trying to reach out and help people.
Neither one of us, I don't think anybody, we wouldn't be here either if it
No.
wasn't for cancer. And I think one of the most fortunate things that I got cancer is that is to get out there and teach. You
Well, you
know, and to let people know that you can survive cancer once, twice, 3 times. It's, you know, it's not a battle that you stop.
We live in a great day and age where there's the technology out there and the resources and whatnot, and it's getting better and better every day.
You know, cancer is a real education in and of itself. And you learn lots of lessons in life that otherwise you would miss. And one of those lessons is that there is life after cancer. There is a way to go on beyond that and have a quality life. One of my greatest possessions is my mom's Bible.
Yeah.
And when she passed away, I got her Bible. And what she used to do as a habit, when she would come across quotes or things she would like, she would write them down and then put them in her Bible in just a piece of paper. And one of the things that cancer will teach you real quickly is that you need to live in the moment.
Yes.
And one of my favorite quotes that I read from her Bible said that it's not the trials of today that drive men mad, but rather the anguish and regrets of yesterday and the fears and apprehensions of tomorrow. And I always think, my mom was a smart lady. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't get much of it, but she, you know, and that was her way of saying, just live in the moment.
Yeah.
You know, you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so
Your mom
cancer
sound-
kind of teaches you that
Yeah.
it can come on quickly. I lost my older sister from initial diagnosis to her death in 17 months.
Yeah.
And it was over quickly for her, much too soon. She was 48. So, You know, I just think that we learn these lessons in life, and then as we are post-cancer, we can use those to better the quality of our life. And one of the things that it has really made me focus on is how I can be of help to other people.
Yeah.
You know, our facilitator for our Thursday meetings said, you know, Wade, you got to come, you know, because why me? And she said, well, you're 5 years past a transplant.
Yeah.
And when people are in the middle,
me.
yeah, like Mary. And when people are in the middle of all this, trying to struggle through the treatment, and some days you just are, you know, you realize there are things worse than death, you know? And, well, you know it too, because you've been through it. But she said, you know, you can serve as an inspiration to others. That, but I would say that, like I said, I've never enjoyed life and been happier than I am at this point in my life. And that's after 2 bouts with cancer. I have a lot of empathy for the veterans.
Yeah.
They're often forgotten.
They are.
But many from Vietnam who were diagnosed with this very aggressive blood cancer passed away, unfortunately. I was blessed to be able to have my treatment through UNMC. There are only 4 hospitals in the Veterans Administration that do stem cell, and the nearest was at Vanderbilt in Nashville. And I was had a situation at home that I could just not leave for some undetermined period of time. So my case manager at the VA went to the administrator of the hospital, and this was 5 years ago. This was long before outsourcing to other facilities other than the VA was even being discussed. And they allowed me to go through UNMC, and that saved my life.
So now that your life is saved, what are you going to do with it?
Oh, I have
You
fun.
retired?
You know, for an old retired guy, I stay pretty busy.
Yeah.
Like coming to shows like this?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking the other day as I was walking through, I don't know, Target or some store, and there was this mass, it looked like one of these Black Friday door opening things where people were going after the school supplies.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, man, I'm glad those days are over.
I'm still in it,
Yeah.
just so you know.
I'm an empty nester, and I'm loving every minute of it.
My
Wade,
youngest is...
thank you so
Oh, sure,
much for
sure.
being on our show.
Yeah. Well, I would just close.
Just-
I would just close, Jamie, by saying this: whether we have cancer or not,
Right.
we should focus on living our days to the fullest, not counting on tomorrow, trying to see where we can be of help to others. There are a lot of people suffering in this world, and cancer is such a difficult thing for so many people in the extended family and the caregivers. You find out that there are a lot of people that love you and that want to help you.
People that you would never even have thought even knew who you are, all of a sudden were calling me up and going, we're praying for you.
Right, exactly.
And we need to, you know, cancer survivors need to allow that help to come into play, because I know that some people just, you know, are stubborn and like, I can handle it, but just let them help.
But you told me you had to write thank you cards to everybody.
You know, it's not that everybody needs to do that, but I have this thing.
Yeah.
And I also have to say that I wrote my thank yous with love, and it made me feel better. Now, if, you know, you're a person that's like, oh, I got to write another thank you, then don't do it.
Right, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I've learned in my life, sometimes the best response is just to say thank you. I mean, my liaison there at the hospital, when I began to lose my hair, and it was all in the shower and all that, she, Joanne Tate, very special person, she came to my room with her clippers and cut my hair.
Aw.
Yeah. And I thought that was such an act of kindness. And I said, you know, Joanne, you've got lots of talents I didn't even know about, you know.
You gotta love the
I had my
support
head
system.
shaved 2 different times as well, and people came to my room because I was in isolation. I'm sure you were as well.
Yep.
And so I just said, shave it off, and it was long, and I didn't care because I had a new look. It was fun. I held my head high.
That she
did.
did. never saw you. I don't think, did you ever wear a wig?
I have 2 wigs, which one of these times we're going to have a wig show, okay?
Yeah.
Because I have to show you them. But my family came to my house one day, and I had the wig on, and they didn't recognize me. It was fun, but that's a whole other topic, guys.
These days, guys with bald heads are not.
They're all in.
Yeah, that's the cool thing.
Yeah,
So.
I felt bad when I walked in for my chemo, and I had this flowing hair, and it was like I looked like Fabio going in the room. So I had to go in. I had my hair cut,
Yeah.
so that I wouldn't look quite like I had hair.
When I went
All
through
right.
when I went through boot camp in the
Yeah.
Marine Corps, you had these these fellas that came in. This was in the '60s, and you had the Fonz kind of guys and that sort of thing. And so these barbers would have fun with them and say, "How would you like for me to cut your hair?" And they go, "Well, take a little off the side, a little off the back." Whoa! And everybody came out of there with a bald head.
Came out all looking the same.
That was funny.
Oh,
We want to
God.
thank you so much for being on the show.
do.
We need to close now.
Yep.
But is there anything you'd like to say before we go? Quickly.
I appreciate your efforts.
Thanks.
Thank you.
There are a lot of hurting people, as I said earlier, and anything that we can do to be a resource and be a help to those people I think is what's expected of us.
It is.
God gave us all a reason to be post-cancer, and we need to look for that every day.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank
and
you
thank you everyone for
so
joining
much.
us.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you very much, Wade.